There, nestled against his pulse, by Hes Done. Chapter 3. "Do you ever wash those?" is what Lance says the moment Keith walks out of his room. He glances across the hallway and rolls his eyes. Lance stands there with his arms crossed, glaring at Keith's gloves. Of course it's his gloves. Last week it was his shoes, and how they stink. The week before that had non-stop jibes at his powers, of all things, and interspersed with predictable bullet comments. The entirety of last month saw Lance grumbling about the stains on Keith's shirt, which Keith was 100% certain he was lying about, because you can't see stains on black, and Keith would know he wore this exact shirt for 2 weeks without anyone noticing the mustard stain dead center. To be fair, that was when he was living out in the desert, but whatever. "Do you just stand out here waiting for me every morning?" Keith retorts. "Because this is the 4th time this week I've had to see your face first out of everyone on this ship." "Not that I mind," he doesn't say. "It's a nice face." Lance snorts and starts for the dining room, brushing past Keith. "Right, because I would absolutely take the time to do something that dumb." "I mean," says Keith, "there was that time where you tried to convince Hunk the food goo was haunted again, but just ended up with your pants full of—" Lance whips around and points a finger at Keith's nose. "You! Shut up!" Keith stares down at the finger, looks back up, raises an eyebrow. Lance narrows his eyes. "I do not wait around your door just to ask you if your gloves are dirtier than they look." "I don't know, that's kind of what just happened," Keith says, and he digs his nails into his palms because it's getting difficult not to laugh at the rising flush on Lance's cheeks. Cute! "What? Well, I bet you don't wash them anyway!" "Yeah, you're right." Keith nods decisively. "I've never washed them, and I never will. I like to have my hands forever caked in dirt and sweat and blood. It's great for the grip it gives me with my sword." He makes a fist, shakes it for emphasis, and starts walking again. He has to force himself not to react to the hilarious mix of anger and confused noises Lance makes as he catches up to Keith. "Why are you so concerned anyway? It's not like I touch anything you own with my dirty hands," Keith says. Lance gestures vaguely with a wide sweeping hand. Keith ducks under it, sighing. "You're just always wearing it! It's suspicious! You're gonna sue me for being curious!" Keith glances over at him. Lance genuinely doesn't look anything else but inquisitive in that irritated way he gets when he's stuck his teeth into something and is determined not to let go until he's satisfied. Keith gets flashbacks of him hunched over under a blanket, thumbs stabbing away at a game controller and staring dry-eyed at a screen proclaiming, "Killbot Phantasm 1. "It really is for better grip," he says, which is half the truth. "It's less conspicuous than leather bands," is the other half. They're almost at the dining room doors, and Keith stuffs his hands into the pockets of his jacket, noting how Lance's gaze flicks down to them. "That's it?" Lance asks doubtfully. "You wear them to eat, too. Is that for better grip with your spoon?" Keith feels a flare of irritation at the tone, but he swallows it down. It's too early to get into this with Lance again. "My hands get cold, all right?" Lance snores. "Whatever. At least tell me you don't have them on when you sleep." Keith doesn't even hesitate. "I wear them in the shower, too." Lance jokes on his spit, and Keith smiles. They're down on a recently liberated planet, fresh from battle and eager to meet the native ferryter when it happens. There are smiles and cheers from the crowd when the team emerge from their lions and Alora from her shuttle. They're gathered on the outskirts of the smoking city in the open plains covered in glaringly orange grass. The juxtaposition of the blue-furred ferryter and the surrounding vegetation has Keith squinting against the assault on his eyes. Alora and the ferryter leader step forward to greet each other. Standing at Alora's back with the rest of the team, Keith removes his helmet. This is where it goes wrong. The cheers cut off. 1,000 snarls rise in place, and the ferryter leader rises to her full height, fur bristling. Alora is immediately on the defensive, hands falling to her whip as she scans the ferry turret with confusion and alarm. Keith and the rest of the paladins already have their bayards activated, scanning the skies for returning Galra, but the gray clouds above them remain purple-free. Keith exchanges looks with the rest of the team, but no one seems to know what's happening. His helmet is on the ground, and he bends down to pick it up, eyes still fixed on the agitated crowd. The leader's head swings around with unerringly accuracy to focus on him. Keith freezes and sweat prickles at the nape of his neck as she throws her head back to let loose a loud, whistling scream that the entire group of ferryter echo. When she drops her chin, her eyes are slitted, black pupils on deep purple, lips pulled back from her terrifyingly sharp teeth. She takes one thundering step towards Keith. And just like that, he knows. Oh, well, he's surprised it took this long, to be honest. Hes Done! The alien spits. He expected it, but the raw hatred in those eyes, focused on him, the aggressive stance and bared teeth, it's more than enough to make him step back. His gut feels full of lead. He's a paladin, Alora says, stiffening. Of Voltron. It's not good enough. The leader just snarls, claws unsheathed and ears pulled back. I can smell it on him. A half-blood, the alien whispers, and Keith can appreciate the deadly softness in her voice. After a millennium under Galra rule, their scent is seared into our noses. Did you think we would not notice the moment we had his scent? Shiro steps forward, placing a hand on Alora's shoulder. She leans into it. It was not our intention to hide it from you, says Shiro, but Keith's heritage was just recently discovered. He pauses. More importantly, it's not a problem to us. He is a paladin, a comrade, and a friend, first and foremost. The crowd before them moves restlessly, tails lashing and bright purple eyes glinting. Keith avoids looking at them, focusing on the breadth of Hung's shoulders, who stands slightly before him. The leader laughs. The only part of her that moves is the chest, where the mocking, tinkling noise rises from. She's dangerously still, otherwise limbs in a perpetual state of awareness or readiness to attack. You would trust him. Half-breed that he is, the Galra in him will win eventually. She tilts her head. We have seen it in our own. Half-children forced on us. We raised them like they were ours, like they were whole ferriters, like their beautiful blue fur was not covered in purple patches, and yet in the end they leave to join the Galra forces. Every last one of them. Her eyes slide back to rest on Keith, and on some unseen signal, every single ferryter follows suit. Their blood dictates violence. Oftentimes when they defect, they leave bodies of their kin behind. Their beloved. Keith swallows. Stop, why are you doing this to me? Stop it, stop it, stop. Keith wouldn't do that, Pidge says, her words shaking with anger. And of course we trust him, Hunk adds, there's sweat dripping down his temple, but his voice is steady, resolute. Keith blinks hard. Once, twice. Someone in the crowd scoffs. We do not, the voice calls out. You may be welcome here, but he is not. The Febitor leader says nothing to dispute that, and her attention swings around to Shiro and Laura, standing front and center. There is a challenge in her gaze. We place great value in actions, Voltron paladins above all else, she says. And the Galra have been ever so blatant in theirs. No one moves. Voltron is stuck. With the Febitor unwilling to accept Keith, the team can't offer their help, even though one look at the crumbling city around them says the Febitor desperately need it. A quick glance at Alora confirms what Keith already knows. The pinched mouth and the bright eyes say she really doesn't want to leave them on their own. It feels like a million fish bones in his throat, but he'd rather sit this one out than hold on to his pride and let these people suffer. Princess, nope, this isn't working for me, someone sighs. Keith whips around. Lance stands with his hands crossed behind his head, the picture of casual indifference. As they all turn to him, he lazily waves a hand at Keith. You say you don't want his help, he says. But Keith pilots the Red Lion. I'm pretty sure you all saw that Red spent the entire battle out on the front lines dealing the most damage. His arms drop to his sides, and he shifts his weight from one foot to the other. Not to mention the ridiculous moves he had to pull to keep fighter ships off your last remaining hospital, which was where most of your kids and elderly were holed up in, you know. And then he and Red went back out there and brought down 2 battle-class ships on their own. He also got up close and personal with that scary new cannon they've got, the one that incinerated 3 of your other cities before we got here, just to give the rest of us openings to take the fleet down. Lance pins the leader with a steady look, the laid-back attitude falling from his body like water. Keith's breath stutters. What was it you said? We place great value in actions over everything else. Lance's eyes flick over to Keith, then back to the ferryter. You may know the Gara, but you don't know anything about Keith beyond what he's done for you and your people today. And what he's done is a hell of a lot. Lance shrugs, a move designed to infuriate that's been used on Keith one too many times, but now he finds himself hopelessly astonished that Lance can do something so fluid and self-assured in the face of so much suspicion and scorn. If you can't trust Keith, if you think he's lacking somehow, even after all that, I don't see how you could accept any of us, Lance continues. After all, everything he's done, we've done it all too. He taps a thoughtful finger on his chin, squinting into the distance. I might have done less, actually. Only took down half his fighter ships, that's for sure. Keith's fast. Silence reigns over them after Lance's final flippant remark, and Keith feels nervous laughter bubble up in his throat. He clamps his mouth shut, not knowing when it dropped open. A deep laugh rings out, startling the team. From the heart of the crowd, a single ferryter ambles forward, shaking his head. He's grinning, though Keith's not sure if that's a good thing. He claps the ferryter leader on the shoulder, like he doesn't notice how close she is to disemboweling someone. The blue one has got you there, Jick, he says. Jick apparently just growls, but she eyes Lance speculatively. The other ferryter crosses his arms and tilts his chin up, eyes narrowed. He's still grinning, teeth flashing yellow. What is your name, Blue Paladin? It's Lance. Lance, the alien repeats. The syllables sound rough coming from a mouth with that many teeth. My understanding from your words is that if we turn away the half-breed, his name is Keith, Hunk says, hard like stone. Keith, the ferryter concedes. If we turn away Keith, then we shall expect you to turn from us. Laura makes an aborted move, a directionless jerk of her body that says she wants to protest, that they couldn't possibly withhold help. But then she looks at Keith. She bites her lip. Oh no, says Lance. We'd still offer, obviously, Voltron, defender of the universe and all that, but it wouldn't make much sense, would it? Keith's our best, right after Shiro. If that isn't good enough for you, you probably shouldn't trust the rest of us with the delicate rebuilding of your planet, right? Keith feels like he's burning. Our best! Jick rolls her slitted eyes.
Do not bother with your roundabout words. We understand your intent quite clearly. Either the Red One stays or none of you will.
Lance scratches his temple. Well, if that's how you want to interpret it. Jick snorts. Please, Alora says, hands spread imploringly. Set aside your wariness. We only want to help. Jick and her friend turn to each other, the latter with an amused look that makes Jick's expression sound further. After a beat, they face Keith, the rest of the ferryter crowd, again doing the same. It's incredibly synchronized, and he has a crazy split-second thought that maybe they practiced this or something.
I suppose you have proven yourself,
Jick admits. She sighs, still obviously ill-tempered, but pointedly turns her back to Keith and the rest of the team.
Fine then, he can stay, but we'll be watching.
Keith nearly flops to the ground in relief. The threat doesn't faze him much because it's telling, showing you're vulnerable back to someone. His knees shake slightly and he stubbornly wrestles his muscles under control.
This way.
Jick beckons them with a jerk of her arm.
We need the most help over here, where the buildings have...
Her voice drifts away, much like the rest of the crowd, out of the plains and back into the city, where fire still smolders and alarms shriek faintly. The team hesitantly follows, eyeing the ferreter walking beside them, but the aliens seem to content with their leader's decision. Keith pays none of this any attention, choosing instead to jog up to Lance, who hangs at the far side of the group. Lance notices him when he's a few feet away and gives a little wave. Keith!
Lance?
Keith draws even with him. He tucks his helmet under his other arm so he can nag his elbow into Lance's.
You didn't have to say all that back there.
Lance huffs a noisy breath. I'm not even going to respond to that!
You just did.
Lance's eye starts twitching. Keith, I swear!
Thanks, though.
Keith says. Lance falls quiet, staring at him.
Really, thanks. I appreciate it, you looking out for me. It could have gone a lot worse without your intervention.
Lance looks away, shoulders hunched. His next words are a mumble. The others do it too, you know. Look out for you, I mean. Huck was ready to throw down.
I know.
Keith laughs lightly.
And I'll thank them too, later. But it's just... I don't know, I wasn't really expecting that from you.
Lance turns to him so quickly that Keith's afraid his neck snapped. What? Keith backpedals because he didn't mean it like that!
No, it's not... I know you don't actually hate me, but it was just a lot of praise coming from you. Our best, Lance? Really?
But Lance doesn't react to the teasing, only staring at Keith for a second more before simply saying, You are, though! It's not really praise anyway, just fact! And with that, he moves on ahead to sling an arm around Paige's shoulders, leaving Keith to tag behind with a hand over his mouth, eyes wide, and face pink!